Hello everyone, this is the first video that I'm making on YouTube, so cut me some slack. The reason I'm making this video is because of C's process of Acotro. As you all know, Acotro is for individuals who have studied occupational therapy outside of Canada, and now they are looking to practice as an occupational therapist in Canada. Um, when I was coming here, I looked all over the internet and I couldn't find anything about this process if I should join it. I didn't know anyone who was in this process, and because this process has been here since 2015, there's not many graduates of this process. So I thought that maybe it would be better that now that I'm in the last stages of this process, make a video or give you guys some information about what this process is, what is required in it, how long it will take, and all. Now I want to give a little bit of history about me, and I want to say that everything that I say in this video is just my opinion. I'm not an C's associate. I'm not in any way related to them. I'm not a staff of C's. I'm not even considered an occupational therapist in Canada since I haven't finished the process and I haven't passed all of the stages of the process. So everything that I say, it's basically only my own opinion of what's happening in C's. Um, I came from Iran and I graduated from Medical University of Isfahan and I studied Bachelor's of Occupational Therapy. In Canada, occupational therapy is only a master's degree. So if you were an occupational therapist before in your country, in your home country, and you want to come to Canada, regardless of your degree being a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD degree, if you want to practice as an occupational therapist in Canada, you need to go through the C's process, of course, after 2015. So first that you come to Canada and you want to start practice, there are two alternatives. First, participate in the C's process, finish it, participate in the National Board of Occupational Therapists, and pass that, and then you'll be granted the ability to practice as an occupational therapist. Two is to go to and study masters of occupational therapy in any of the universities available that have this program in Canada and pass and finish the masters and then apply for NBCOT, pass that, and then you would be able to practice as an occupational therapist. And well, as you might know, well, finishing a master's degree might be very difficult. However, C's process is not that easy either. As you can see, like when you see on the steps that it says on Akotro's website, and if you Google it, it just has a C's part that you can see all the steps and stuff. And you could see that that is not an easy task, but it doesn't very tell you in detail what each step is. And I'll tell you what, even if you call in or email, they wouldn't give you, at least they didn't give me a very detailed information regarding each process and what it needs to be done. So before I even start to talk about C's process, I just want to make sure that you all know that this process is not the NBCOT exam. This is something that you have to take to be eligible to participate in the National Board Exam of Occupational Therapy in Canada. So what I'm saying is first you have to go through this process. This is an equivalency process. And then if you got accepted in this process, then you can apply for NBCUT and participate in the exam. If you are a graduate, a master's graduate of occupational therapy from anywhere in this Canada, you don't need this C's process. Only the individuals who've come out from outside Canada and they haven't studied occupational therapy within Canada have to go through this process of equivalency to equivalent their degree to the Canadian version, and only then they would be eligible to participate in the NBCOT. So this process, this CEAS process is part of Acotro, but there's also another company for occupational therapy in Canada called COTO, College of Occupational Therapists of Ontario. That it's actually different in each province. For us that we're in Ontario, it's called COTO, and for each province is different. So basically, after you graduate and after you pass the national board exam in your province, you will be joined to the College of Occupational Therapists of your province. For me, being College of Occupational Therapists of Ontario. So for you that you haven't started, it might be a little bit confusing that what Acotro is, what Koto is, are they one? Because they actually have the same mailing address, and it was kind of confusing for me at first that I felt like they're both one thing, but why do they have two different like names? Because like in IELTS and TOEFL and English proficiency exams, you might find one of them but not the other one. So the important thing is just to know that CEAS is part of Acotro, and there are a different thing from Koto, which is College of Occupational Therapists of Ontario. So out of these two options, one could just say that, yeah, heck with it. We'll just go and study masters and just skip the CEAS process. And however, it's a 2 year university. If you take 2 full courses of each year, and usually these courses are only, these programs are only available in very top universities in all over the Canada. Like in Ontario, only like 4 universities provide this program. It's McMaster's, it's Western, it's University of Ottawa, but in Ottawa, I think it's only in French, and it is in U of T, of course. And all of these, as you might know, there are top universities even in the world, and they require a very high level of GPA. So if you don't have the GPA that they require as a minimum requirement, you might want to take some other courses to increase your GPA first, and then apply for these programs, and then finish the program, and then apply for NBCOT. That's a good way to go around the CEAS. But if you want to start the CEAS program, that's okay as well. As you might see, it says that on the website that CEAS program is done in 1 year. That on the first glance, you might think that, okay, 1 year, and the other one is like 2 or 3 years, right? So 1 year is a lot better, but my experience, I'm already in the third year of CEAS. I just started it. I mean, I just finished and maxed out the full 2 years that I've been in CEAS, and I just started the third year that I was in CEAS. So in a second, I'm going to tell you why it took this long, but I'm just, all I'm saying is that maybe going to university might not be such a bad idea, might be a good idea. Maybe I didn't get lucky. However, the CEAS process, it's not that hard. I don't think it would be as hard as going through university. It might be worth it to consider going through CEAS. The problem with CEAS, in my opinion, is that it's not like you would be so busy in it that you wouldn't have time for anything else, and you would be studying full time for like 1 year, 2 year, 3 years that you're in this process. It's just that their customer service is not good at all. Like they don't have a place that you can go visit and go see them and ask your questions. On the website, as much as I know, there is no phone number, and you can get their phone number after you email them, and when they email you back on their information, there's a phone number that you can call. Well, 2 years ago that I applied for this process, that wasn't even like they didn't have a different working days. So I just called every day and I just figured out that they work on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. But now they just say it that they work on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. But even if you called on that days, even if you call during the business hours, there's a big chance that nobody would answer the phone and you would be keep calling. Now is a little bit better. 2 years ago, if you called and nobody answered, even if you left a message, um, not it wasn't very probable that anybody would call back. But now it's a little bit better. They call back at least between like 5 to 10 business days, but or email you back actually between 5 to 10 business days. And that's what it's saying on Acotra's website as well, that they will answer you within 5 to 10 business days. But the problem is that, like, what if you weren't satisfied with the answer that you got, or you had for any further questions? Then you have to email back, and then 5 to 10 business days again to get that answer. And even the people who represent the Acotro, and they answer the phone, they answer the emails, they don't have all the information. A lot of the times, the answer that you will get is that they don't know it or is still being processed. Like for me, what happened was the person on the line was saying that it's being processed for like 3 months when I called, but it figured that it wasn't even being processed. So they just don't know if it's being processed because they're not the ones processing it. And they don't have a system. Like there was a portal, like after a year that I was in this process, they just came up with a portal that it would give you like status, and it would show your steps where you are. But even that didn't last long, and now even that is down and it's not working. So now it's just like there's not a very clear way that you can get answers. And even it's just like a simple answer, it might take you a long time to get that answer. As you might know, there's not many graduates of this program, so you might have a hard time finding anyone that has been going through this process and knows what's going on there. Um, anyway, I was the one who went through this process, and I will be glad if you had any questions about this process, if I could help in any way. Um, so one thing that I want to say is that before I even started this process, um, I had my language proficiency ready, I had my curriculum ready, and then and only then I applied. So I didn't really think that it would take this long, but it did. And now I just started my third year of this process. Um, it's not your fault, but there's nothing that we can do about it. And we just have to go with it. This is the decision that we made not to go with university. And as individuals who studied occupational therapy out of Canada, we don't have a handle to hold on, right? Even if it's hard, even if it's like difficult, we just have to accept it, right? Now I want to talk about the steps of disease. So the first two steps are regarding your curriculum and regarding your language proficiency. So one thing you need to do, and it's better to do it before you come here, is to have your curriculum ready. And what they need is the curriculum, the transcripts, and the course description. And the description should be for each course separately, right? So if it's like, because my course description was like a very short thing about like every course that I had in like one sentence, but then I realized that I needed one that it described literally and in very details what the title of each course means. And they will give you a sheet that it says the courses that they require, and you have to match the courses that you went through with the ones that they had. And if you get a high enough score of compatibility between your transcript and description and what they require, you would be given the passing score to go on to the next steps, I think, which is the language proficiency. Language proficiency, the information about language proficiency is on their website. And if you go there, you can see that they accept IELTS, TOEFL, or CAN test. I took TOEFL. It was good, went through, but even then, it took them a long, very, very long time until they could let me to the next part, which was the jurisprudence exam. So first two parts is not an exam. First two parts is just like them checking your transcripts and curriculum and course description and language proficiency, which is when you're passed, when you have the passing score, is very clear, and it shouldn't like take them that long to just give you the signal to pass and take the jurisprudence exam. But it does. I don't know why. Jurisprudence exam is an exam that tests your knowledge about ethics and morality and some things that you might not have come across, as I hadn't have in your previous degree, because they have standards for Canada, right? And they want your knowledge to be according to their standards, not according to what you have studied before, right? To remind you, this is the like I didn't even know that, like, but you should realize that this is a process to equivalent your previous degree, is not equivalating your current knowledge. And sometimes it just doesn't have to do anything with the knowledge that you have. Even if your knowledge, like right now, is higher than what you were taught to in your previous university, it might not be enough, because they want proof that you have studied this ethics, studied these things that they require you to. And so this jurisprudence, it is a little bit difficult, but it's an exam, right? What I wanted to study, and there are a lot of study sources for it, but I studied all the things that are on Koto's website. And you can also go through the provinces. They all have some parts that they give you the standards and all the ethics and morality rules in Canada. Just make sure that you read them thoroughly, and you read them in a way that, given any circumstances and any test, you could solve the issue and always have the right answer to it. And you should just like know them by heart, like those standards. If you don't know them by heart, you can't. The questions are really hard. Like they're actually very difficult. You have to like know the right answer. Like even after the exam, I didn't know the right answer to some of the questions. Even up until now, I don't know the right answer to some of the questions that I took in that test. It's a little bit difficult. And going to the last test, which is the competency assessment. Competency assessment, as it might seem like, because when you ask the representatives of Acotro that you call, they will just tell you that what to study for competency assessment. Just study whatever you were taught during the years of your training for occupational therapy. But one thing to consider is that competency assessment does not just assess your current competency as an occupational therapist. It also assesses what what you were taught and what you went through the co-op process that you had, through the clinical things that you went through, and it actually goes through them, and it asks you to look in those scenarios and tell them one of the scenarios that you came across with while you were working as an occupational therapist back home, and what your university provided for you, and they want you to problem solve around the problem that you had back when you were in university. For some of us, it might not be easy to just remember one, because maybe university was like at least a few years back, and not many of us might remember what happened in the university and what things were going on. But the thing is that they really want the things that happen in university, and they ask you, okay, where was it? When was it? Who was your professor at the time, and who was your supervisor in the clinic? What happened? What did you ask the professor? And they ask you all sort of questions, and they want to make sure that your answers are very limited to the time that you were getting trained as an occupational therapist, and they are not just asking about your current competence as an occupational therapist. They really want what you were taught and back in university. So that was a thing I didn't know that I wish somebody had told me, that I could have taken the my first attempt better. Basically, you just wanna just prepare them from beforehand, and when you go to the exam, you just have some scenarios to talk about. Yeah, some parts of the exam is just scenarios that they give you. I mean, the second part of the exam, they give you some scenarios, and they ask you to come up with solutions, and they ask you a lot of questions. That exam is a 6.5 hour exam. For me, it took 7 hours, and it's even in 7 hours, it's not just like you're sitting relaxed, you're answering questions one after another. I had like 15-minute lunch, and the rest, it's not just enough time for you to even process what you want to tell the examiner as your answer. You have to be like really quick and really precise to the answer that you want to get, that your answer would be precisely to the question that is given. And you shouldn't just like talk about a whole thing, just try to say whatever is on your mind, because there's not enough time. And if you like are not fast enough, you might lose time, and you might not have enough time for some other questions, right? And it's an interview. It's just like somebody sitting in front of you and asking you questions, and asking you to fix some of the scenarios that they have. That is currently I'm actually looking to take this exam for a second time. Unfortunately, we came into the quarantine time, which everybody's at home, and I think that is why they haven't answered me yet to when I can go ahead and take the second attempt of this exam. Oh, one thing that I really want to say was that like 2 years ago, this process cost $5,000, but now it costs $3,100. However, this 3,100, it's not just 3,100. Um, if you think that like, okay, it's just 3,100. Well, 3,100 is only if you get accepted the first time that you take this exam. And if you want to take it a second time, you have to pay another 2,500. And I also okay, let's just, one more thing that I want to talk about is that when you want to prepare for this exam, for the competency assessment, I mean, not for jurisprudence, I pretty much think that all the information that is on all of the colleges of occupation across Canada, I studied in Ontario mostly, the ones that were on the website of Koto mostly were enough for me. However, the information that was on there was enough. However, if you want to study more in the thing that they give you later on, and there are some books that you can study, and they're actually the references of the things that they teach you, because there's a module to go through, and it teaches you a little bit about what is needed in Canada. But for competency assessment, I also went through the OTEP process, and yeah, they have a clinical reasoning course and everything else, and it's a little bit help that what is required you to know about occupational therapy in Canada. So one thing that I didn't know and now I know is what happens if you go through this process and you fail. Like you take your jurisprudence exam and you fail. You take your competency assessment and you fail. What are you gonna do after? So what you want to do, first of all, jurisprudence assessment and competency assessment, both each of them is just you get 2 attempts, right? So if you fail both attempts, they will still let you to go through the last step, which is the thing that you sit around with them and decide to see what you want to do and how you want to prove that you are a competent occupational therapist. Um, if you get a high enough score, and if you can just let them know that you are competent, um, very good. If not, they will provide you some courses. That's actually the OTEC courses that I just took one of them, but you have to go through all of them to finish, and they will then let you to take the MBCOT exam. But if your score is even lower than that, they will tell you that your scores, even they're not good enough, and they don't think that even going through the OTEC courses could help you. And they will ask you to come up with some solutions to how to show that you're competent and you can move forward to the MBCOT assessment. Um, that's pretty much the information that I know. However, I might have missed something. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to know. Please just write them down under this YouTube video. Thank you a lot. Sorry that I talked too much. I hope the things that I said was constructive, and I'll be glad to know if you have any more questions. Bye-bye.